send me a wrestler, and everyone like laughed. It's just crazy how life has come full circle. And to be in front of his statue, retrospecting my career, to me, it's the most rewarding part of the craft. That's as big as it gets to me. He's an absolute legend. The Landmine really was born there. The program with Dahl was awesome. The oldest sanctioned body in professional wrestling. We clicked and hit it off real well. When we got together, it was also like its own magic, man. Not just wrestled there. We were the first wrestling match ever.
Wow.
It's like, don't forget your education, and just don't forget there's other things in life besides wrestling. There's things I can't talk about that I've been working on that will be absolutely revolutionary. I guarantee you that.
Ladies and gentlemen, hosted by Coach C, Chris Sanders, this is Best for Business.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the channel. Another episode of Best for Business. I'm pumped for this one. One of my absolute favorite people in wrestling, Joe Ocasio, man. Thank you for joining me for this one.
Dude, it's my pleasure, man. I'm looking forward to this interview. Let's get to it, brother. I'm amped.
Now, you have been killing it. I've been seeing all the great things, but one thing I've never asked you, how did that passion for pro wrestling ignite? Because I see it all over social media, but I don't think I've ever asked you how that happened.
Man, I just, I was a young kid. I was overweight when I was younger, which, there's nothing wrong with that. But for me, I was teased a lot for it. And, I think I struggled to fit in and find where I belonged, even at a very early age. And the Mike Tyson was in the build for WrestleMania 14. My dad wasn't even necessarily a wrestling fan, but he was a Mike Tyson fan. And he started watching Raw. And as I remember WrestleMania 14, I distinctly remember to this day the Undertaker's entrance, and I was just hooked. Something about the characters and the athleticism, and almost like a different reality, right? I think there was something that spoke to me about that, and just never left.
So what age did you finally decide this is something that you wanted to pursue?
I mean, I knew from that point, like as a young kid, I knew that was it. I kind of made that decision right away, and I announced it. So I remember doing a report. I don't know what kind of report it was, but I was wearing, I think it was like what you're going to do, right? And I was wearing the Rock shirt, and I'm sending me a wrestler, and everyone like laughed at me. And it was really funny because then years later, I had told that story on Twitter, on X, and the Rock saw it and commented about it, which was awesome. That was after I did SmackDown Extra Work. So it's just crazy how life has come full circle. But yeah, man, it was that long ago.
So walk me through, at the time you weren't Joe Ocasio, but walk me through that first ever match. This is something you always wanted to pursue. You told everyone growing up it was pro wrestling. What was that first match for you?
Well, I mean, the truth is, I like most people, I was backyarding at one point. Wow, can't believe I said it on a podcast. I would backyard wrestle with my friends. My buddy Steve 2K, big shout out to my buddy Steve. And then I went to XWA, which was in Babylon. But there's a lot of guys who did those, the backyard shows. A couple of them were trained and did the indies and had stopped, but still wanted to have fun with their friends. So one of those guys, a guy named Chris Caliber, and then Javier was close to Chris Caliber, who was a local independent wrestler. And I wound up learning the ins and outs of chain wrestling and understanding psychology. I was the only one asking the questions, and they had no problem giving me the answers. And they said, hey, man, like, you should get to know Javier. So I got to know Javier a bit. I started doing some training with him. And then eventually I went to NYWC to get my formal training, which I had a pretty good background thanks to those guys. And the first match I ever had with them, though, so if we're going to go with official, and I did work with FTW as well before that, too. Sorry, I should have mentioned that. But my first real match was myself and here in Mansfield versus Bruno Marciano and Tony Mamaluke.
Wow.
And I remember, I'll never forget this. I was out doing flyers for the show, and they told us to come back at some time. I lost track of time, and I'm like out, and I'm still flyering and stuff, and it's getting late. And I get a call, like a scolding call. Where are you? They're like, Mansfield's partner's out. You got to be here. Mike's out. I'm like, what? Like, get here now. And I'm like, okay. And like Mamaluke was pissed, right? Because I showed up late. But like I'm not going to tell him I was flyering and that I was doing something for the show, right? So I didn't say anything. I just said, I'm sorry, sir. And I took a clothesline bump for him where I folded up like an accordion. And after that, I was like, you took a really good bump for me. I like you. And then I got to tell him after. He's like, well, why didn't you tell me you were doing that? I'm like, I have respect. He goes, all right, I like you more now.
Wow.
And I remember he sat me down and he gave me some great advice. He said, wrestling's always here. He's like, don't forget your education and just don't forget there's other things in life besides wrestling. And it's probably the hardest thing for a wrestler to hear. But it was really important advice that I thought about later on in life that opened me up to different areas, to different businesses, and define success and network in different things. So I appreciate that.
What a first match. Now, something that blew my mind about your career, I was looking at, I don't know if it was either like 5 or 6 matches in. A few months later, you wrestle in a War Games for one of your first matches. So how was that experience?
Crazy.
Yeah.
It's like overwhelming, because and like it's when you reflect on it now, when I reflect on it now, it's like, wow, like I was doing some really, really like big time stuff at an early age without the experience, but I still performed well. I did it was a lot of yes, sir, I'll do whatever you ask. War Games was awesome. That was Warriors. I got in there with Joey B, and I forgot who else I was with in the match because my brain doesn't work. But I remember how fun it was. That those crowds there, they're very passionate fans. So, made a deep connection right off the bat. And it was really something else. War Games, one of your first matches. You can't make this stuff up, But I will tell you this: as much as it's cool to do those kind of matches, I've always been a fan of just traditional wrestling, especially one-on-one. I've always just the art of it to me is my favorite, and I've always that's my favorite thing to do. So
nice. So talking about singles matches, there's 2 matches that sticks out early in your career. I think it's like 6 months after that. Tell me about getting the opportunity to wrestle Jay Lethal. He's not the big star yet, but he did a lot with Ring of Honor and everything at the time.
Yeah, I mean, he was really starting to get hot at that time, and I mean, I learned. I remember, I forgot who said it, but my cousin was in the audience. Like, one of the wrestlers said, like, you just pulled off a main event match. That was a main event match. Nice. And again, a lot of listening to Jay. We actually did. We wrestled before that singles match in a triple threat for a company called MVW, which is inside the Ace Arena, which was really, that we connected, we bonded. I had a good chemistry with him. But then the singles match was a bigger learning experience. There are things that I definitely did that I wish I didn't do. Looking back. It was lack of experience, but it was important learning experiences from him, just like places I should have been in the ring, and very, very small things. But it was, it's like getting, I don't know how to put it. You can't replicate that kind of education. You can't replicate that kind of experience working with somebody who is on the rise and is as good as it gets. And then you said Bobby Fish, right?
Yeah.
That was another, Bobby was another influence. Well, this is what I'll say. A lot of people acknowledged that I was good, and I would hear a lot of times that I was good, especially for my experience level. But even though it sucks to hear, you always want to hear, well, what else can I work? Because you're never perfect, and there's always things that you could work on, and there was a lot of things I could work on. And Bobby and I had a good match. But after, he was really honest. He's like, I felt like some things were sloppy here and there. He goes, sit down. And he just gave me, like, from top to bottom, all these small details, right, that I should pay attention to and focus on. And he gave me another really good piece of advice I remember to this day. He's like, one of the people I take my advice from, he's like, listen to everybody. He's like, obviously have a filter, but it was somebody who's a fan. He's like, he's not trained, but he's giving realistic feedback from somebody who watches on a regular basis. And it was something about his like presence to the audience. And he's like, just keep that in mind as your career goes. to keep your ears open to everybody, even someone who's not trained in the business, of what they're seeing from you. And it was just a really good, like, okay, I'm like, thank you for that. And I applied it right away. And he was right.
Wow. So one thing that blew my mind when I was going through your social media, now I'm from Rhode Island, but I'm a big Mets fan. Now you got to wrestle in Citi Field. So how did that opportunity come to be?
Not just wrestled there. We were the first wrestling match ever.
Wow.
So really wild.
Yeah.
So that was through, it was a big time wrestling event, but it was partnered with FTW. So I worked for FTW for many years when it was on Long Island. And at one point I was the head trainer of the Port Jefferson School. But to keep it simple, FTW went first, big time went later, and they had like Goldberg there and Steiner's, wild. And yeah, so we got put on first to be the first match in Citi Field history. Yeah, it's 2014. I was still young. Like some of these things that happened, I don't even know how to make this make sense. I don't think even the people in my circle really understood the scale of and the magnitude. And I think even us at the time, like not really comprehending how insane that. I don't think there's been any wrestling there since. It's just it's a really, really unique opportunity to say that we did. And yeah, first match. I mean, there's when I do these interviews sometimes, man, it's like I think we all get down on ourselves sometimes about things we haven't accomplished. And sometimes you got to look back and just realize what the road has been and the journey you've been on, and really appreciate these things that no one else can say they did. It's pretty crazy to say that.
Yeah,
it's a history-making moment.
Your resume, when I was doing research, kept going and going. It maybe took me like 2 to 3 hours just to find some topics to talk about, like, because it kept going. We got to do a part 2 down the line. But when you talk FTW, tell me about wrestling Eddie Kingston. Are you the first ever Gen-X champion? Is that it?
I don't believe I was the first ever, but I was the Gen-X
at the
champion.
time.
Yeah, I think somebody got hurt. I don't remember the, but I do know I won it. I became the Gen-X champion. I held that title for a while. I got to wrestle Eddie Kingston. I knew Eddie from Ace. That was in a weird time frame where I wasn't happy with myself at the time. Like I kind of let go of myself a little bit too much, and I was going through some stuff, my personal life. So in 2015, that turned around. But I still think the match was awesome. I was also trying new things. Like I was doing like the no knee pads things. That was something that was inference I should try, different look. So it was like a weird finding myself place to be as a wrestler. But Eddie's as professional as they come. And to say I had a title match against him is pretty badass. So I one of those guys. One of the people I just wish I had wrestled a couple of years later. But again, man, you wrestle somebody like that, you learn. You're always learning. He controls a crowd a certain way. He has a certain, he understands his timing, just like it's a second nature. So I got to see that in the ring, and I remember understanding how powerful his presence was just in the ring with him. So,
yeah, and then to go with that, another guy I wanted to ask you about. I don't remember the name. He might have had a different first name, but what was it like wrestling Ripper Zbyszko?
Dude, Zbyszko, he was it's if I'm not mistaken, that's
it's Larry's kid.
Larry's son, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, dude, he's a real good guy. I mean, he's a good dude. Man, it was a random like thrown together thing. I think it was FIP, right? And I think it was a changed match. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. He was easy to work with. That whole time frame with FIP, like right, and the WWN family, we're talking, we're talking some of the best guys that wound up getting signed later on, or even just kind of was the top of the independent scene. And at a time where I think that the business, like the in-ring style, was changing. So, but Zbyszko was like kind of an old school worker, which is what I like. So we clicked and hit it off real well, and I have fond memories of that match.
So, Joe Ocasio, you said you like that standard one-on-one match. However, multiple parts in your career, not for long, you were a tag team wrestler. So how did the idea for Team Talent or Team Torment start? Well, that's funny. So Carrion, when he was Jason Kross, we just looked very similar. We had similar gear, and we had similar interests in like MMA and working out, all that stuff. So Joey's just like, oh, I'm going to put you guys together. And we were both like,
we liked being standout single stars. But when we got together, it was also like its own magic, man. We really bonded and clicked in the ring. We had similar styles. And in Warriors of Wrestling especially, we actually went from just being a tag team to working into the top of the card to doing an angle where we both won the Warriors Wrestling title.
Wow.
Only defended it as a unit. It was a really fun, really, really fun angle that we took super seriously. I remember like got changed in the parking lot. Like I loved syncing. That's actually when I started finding myself again, and I started getting back in better shape because like I reinvigorated my passion and realized we're doing something special and unique. So I have really fond memories of that time frame with him and doing something special. Like it was in a passing conversation with somebody else that I mentioned that idea that got back to Joe. He's like, "That's fucking great." Right. So it was just just the crowds, like they were so hot and hated us, and I loved the investment of just doing everything that you would do if you were enemies that stole a championship. You know what I mean? It was really, it was fun. It was just fun. And the promos. So like that, I will say this, the biggest thing about the Team Talent, Team Torment, we started being almost like, not goofy, but like we started being funny. And like, that's a big part of my personality that like just never really I was able to show. Yeah. So all of a sudden we start doing these skits and these promos and it's showing more of my real personality and like that. So that's like probably the biggest takeaway of Team Torment and Team Talent is the ability to really take the gloves off and be just whatever I wanted to be. And it helped me find myself later. So it's really cool.
And then speaking of tag teams, it's short-lived, but you and Cezar Bononi, right? You guys went for a little bit.
Yes, we did. I love Cezar. We did that in Full Faith Wrestling. We did. That's where. So again, right? Times change, things change. So, Carrion had stopped wrestling. I had, went through the name change of being Joe Ocasio. Now I'm not a tag team anymore. So I'll give I've said this story before, but to give a brief, I got Achilles tear, bicep tear. I got a bunch of injuries. It happens with wrestling, but it happened at a pivotal time for me, and I just didn't. When I came back, it wasn't the same, and I took some time off. Right. So. Carrion was part of the reason I came back. He was calling me. And he wanted to start wrestling again. So I'm like, all right, I'll do it as a tag team. And that's it. I'm only doing it as a tag team. Do it and have fun. And then when he stopped, I already had my passion back. So now I'm like, I have to do something. So I stopped being Jack Gallo. I don't know why. I just felt like it was the right time to put that name to a side. And I started using my real name. But I'm like, all right, I need another layer. What am I? That became a hard question to answer. So I I'm like, I'm fitness, right? So my time off, I really built myself in the fitness world for big brands. And I started my own business. So I'm like, well, I changed lives. Really. I'm like, all right, everyone knows me as this really positive, nice, outgoing trainer. What if I'm that? And then right at the end of this vignette series, I started showing signs of like being like a manipulative psychopath. That would be fun. I've never seen a fitness leader that's like a cult leader. I've never seen that. So and it tied into who I was. So that's where I started the life-changing Joe Ocasio, directly from stopping as a tag to being singles. It was short-lived too because it was hard to give that presentation on the bigger stages without a ton of investment in promos and pre-tapes. And when I first got to work for the NWA, actually, Billy Corgan, he had seen my work. He liked my promos. He thought I was, a great wrestler. But he's like, I liked the life-changing thing. He's like, if I'm going to put a fitness person, I think Richard Simmons, but that's not you. He's like, you're an explosive badass in the ring. So he's like, I just feel like for me, we need something that screams that without having to, they just don't have the investment to show with that life channel. I'm like, oh, damn it. But then I was programming a workout and I was using the Long Island Landmine. So that's when I came full circle and found that.
Wow, that's crazy. So when did you add the Long Island Landmine? Just recently after that? Because obviously you're from Long Island?
Yeah, so as soon as I came up with that idea, I started doing the groundwork on new gear, new presentation, and a promo to tell the story of me as, you know, the landmine from Long Island. Now I just usually use the landmine. I kind of cut the Long Island part out, but it became a, you know, it just had a nice ring to it. It was cool. It was different. It told the story of my in-ring style. And I had a lot of fun just thinking of, like, you know, I'm that explosion that just you haven't, you know, everybody's already popped off, right? People have been stepped on and popped off and gotten signed to this, and they've ruled, but there's one that you haven't. It's me, you know. So that was how I kind of tied it into who I really am. And yeah, it's been a journey since. So that's you know, it'll always be, I think, with me now. I've done little variations, calling myself the thread, and there's more to come, but the landmine will always be there. That's like the footprint of Joe Ocasio.
Yeah, so a company you mentioned earlier was Big Time Wrestling. Now, you got to do something pretty cool. You got to wrestle, what was it, Tommy Dreamer, Raven, and the Sandman? How was that opportunity?
So I still remember that day. So it was a road trip, and I had wrestled Harlem Bravado.
Yep.
And Brian Idol in a triple threat match. And as we were doing, so Dreamer was watching the match. On there, this is the craziest thing. This was one of those, even though we'll get to the ECW. I'm standing at the entranceway to have the triple threat, and I feel somebody pat me on the shoulder, and I turn around, and it's Sting.
Wow! And
not only is it Sting, he's in his full character, so it's like I just didn't expect it. He's like, good luck out there, kid. And dude, I got goosebumps, and as he said it, and I'm like, yo, this.
Yeah.
And it was it was one of those surreal, like, when you know, when you're backstage working with, in any way, shape, or form, somebody of that magnitude who's a staple of the industry, who's, you know, I don't have to put over Sting. Most of Sting is, and that's the point. When you realize that you're backstage working on the same event, you're in the same arena, and you see thousands of people, you know, you realize you really did it. That was one of those moments. I'm like, oh, you know, that little kid is achieving that dream. It was incredible. So now, getting back to the triple threat, knocked it out of the park.
No,
Tommy's watching, right? So Tommy's watching, and the person he was supposed to be in the main event with, you know, opposite team, couldn't make it for whatever reason. And Tommy's like, "You're very good. You have a great look." He's like, "Where'd you train?" I told him all that. He goes, "Okay." Then he comes back like maybe 20 minutes later. He's like, "Can you wrestle in the main event match with me tonight? It's against." And he told me, "Yeah." He's like, "Just stick with me though. Just trust me." All right. So yeah, we went out. We did that. Man, what a feeling driving home from that show. It was pretty special. It was hearing the, like, when you're in the ring and you have all of them coming out one after the other, and then the Sandman's music hits, and like, it's like you're standing, like time stands still. It's like, really, it's pretty awe-inspiring, especially at that age, at that time. You know, 2016, early 2016. It was yeah. To this day, I can remember it like it just happened. So it was very special.
Yeah. So you talked about it earlier, NWA. So I'm curious, how did the opportunity for that start to be?
So NWA, yeah. So Brian Idol wound up getting over to NWA, and I was working actively, you know, doing the independents, and he was talking to Billy, I guess, one day about his roster, and he's like, you know, there's this guy, you know, you should probably look at, and he did. He's like, wow, he's good. He's like, let's bring him in for the next taping. So I got to go and have in 2022, I did my first tour. I think I did 3 days. I wrestled Psycho Boy Fodder. I wrestled Colby Carino, PJ Hawks.
Yeah.
Gustavo, and we did a 4-way match. And yeah, dude, it was really, the NWA is the NWA, right? It's the oldest sanctioned body in professional wrestling. It's history. It's literally the foundation of what professional wrestling became. And somebody who's been, you know, an entertainment icon decided to buy that after his run in TNA, and now I'm there, right, as a part of the new vision of the brand. It's stuff like that is, again, man, like, again, it's, as I say it, it's crazy to say.
Yeah.
Right? You know, it's really an honor to be a part of it. So yeah, that's how it went down. That's how I got.
You talk about NWA now. What would you think is something that stands out about wrestling for the NWA compared to somewhere else?
It's the people, the minds around you. Like,
Nice.
to me, that to me as a performer, and I've been doing this for a long time, but when I get to be in a locker room with agents like Homicide, who's actively watching your match, when you have Dr. Tom Pritchard, when you have Ricky Morton, we're talking people at Aaron Stevens, right?
Mm.
We're talking people who are masters of the craft, who have found success at the highest level, and not just for themselves, have helped others find success. You know, working with Tom Latimer. Tom Latimer is is an incredible person, and again, another guy who's been everywhere. So that to me is what makes it different. It's you have these people who are proven successes, actively giving you real-time feedback on the little things that, right? So like for somebody like me, if I'm on an independent show, now at this point, generally speaking, I'm one of the veterans who've been wrestling the longest.
Yeah.
So of course you can, like I told you before, I'll listen to anybody. There's been times that I've heard things from people less experienced, but you understand where I'm going with this, right? I usually am the one who holds the highest amount of knowledge in every different area. So for me, not having that feedback on the little things that I could do better, the little things that people don't think about for TV, for a story advancement that's going to be rolled out, not in real time. It's going to be tape delayed. These weird little things that not even weird, just things you don't actively think about because it's not in your face. To have the experts giving you the knowledge, that to me is what makes it different.
Yeah, so one of the places you've also been killing it for a while now, I'm curious your story. How did Wrestling Open come to be for you? And is there any matches or moments that stick out? Because you've been a part of a lot so far.
I love Wrestling Open, man. It really was when the landmine stuff started. I kind of just gave myself a little pep talk. I'm like, I need to make changes in every department. I knew a lot of my, Gabe Sky, I was one of the first people to teach him the foundation of wrestling. Right?
Wow.
So I had a relationship with him. Yeah, I was his first trainer.
Nice.
But like when you say, listen, I'll say this. When you say trainer in wrestling, like you teach people the foundation that they have to build it off of. So yes, I had a hand in it, but he made himself, and I don't take credit for anybody. Let me just make that clear. But we had a relationship, and Desmond Cole was there, a lot of guys, and they're like, hey, it would be awesome if you came. So myself and Kono, they had one of the tryouts coming up, and I'm like, it's a weird thing. Like, I've been wrestling forever, and sometimes you have to check your ego. Like, should I try out? And I'm like, wait. Honestly, if I'm as good as I think I am, I wouldn't. So I'm like, all right. So then me and Kono went and we delivered. And I remember there's a little time they didn't get back to me. They said they wanted, and I'm like, hey, I'm just checking in. Like, is there anything? Like, no, actually, thanks we were just thinking about it. So, and then I went in there and I went on a run. The landmine really was born there. It was really born there. It was again, it was like TV style. That's what I like about it. The matches are, it's great to go out there and do a 20-minute match or even a 10-minute, 12-minute. Those things are great. But realistically, if you're, anyone you probably interviewed, most of them, what's your dream? UE.
Yeah.
How often do guys in WWE get 2-segment matches? It's not, you got to get used to comfortable performing in 4, 5, 6 minutes and being able to stand out as a character and have a quality match with whatever the purpose is. So I'll tell you, like, what I liked about Wrestling Open, it's what I like about pro wrestling in general. Like, that's why I don't love, like, of course it's cool to have 5-star matches, right? Or matches that get ranked. But if a match, the purpose of the match is strengthening a character and there's a percentage difference of how much offense should be there. If you deliver that and it leads to a strong character that winds up being a main event, was that not a 5-star match considering do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
What's
absolutely.
your objective? If you go out there, you're supposed to be a dominant monster and you have a 50-50 match with a bunch of falsies, is that actually a 5-star match?
I hear.
Right? Do you see my fizzle
Yeah.
out? So that's how when he presented to me what he wanted to do and how he wanted to build me, I was like, yes, ding, 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 yes, this is exactly what. and it really helped. Memorable matches. There's so many. I can't eat. My program with Dahl was awesome.
Yeah.
We kicked the hell out of each other. But we had the weapons match, and it was like the fitness themed, and like they let me just rock. I brought like smash balls and battle ropes. We did very unique, different things, which was cool. Alec Price, every time I go in there with him, he's incredible. He's an incredible athlete, and we have a really good dynamic of like the power explosion, technical versus his speed and precision.
Ray Jazz was a good one.
Ray Jazz. Oh yeah. I love working with Ray. That was my last program since I've been there. And the only reason I haven't been there is I have my tour to Italy and it's so occupied in business. But trust me, Ocasio Open is Ocasio. So yeah, Ray Jazz was fantastic. Great working with him. He's collegiate, All-American. We bond a lot over things that we just enjoy outside of wrestling. So we love wrestling each other. There's so much. I've had so many.
What was it like at Wrestling Open when you made your return? Because I remember that reaction at Inception. The place went nuts for you.
Dude, I still... Yeah, that was, it felt really good that they cared. It feels really good anytime anyone still cares. It's weird. You're gone, and it's a cliche thing to say, but it's the truth. You just don't. Maybe they don't care. Maybe they don't remember. Maybe there's so many maybes. And they really. Even coming back, it was a tough process. Injuries suck, and it affects everything. It affects your mental health, your physical health. So to know that I was welcomed back with open arms in Massachusetts as a guy from Long Island was really, really cool, and I think it solidified the work that I put in at that company and being a big part of its growth. And now that's Rhode Island, too. It was. A lot of people say they're like it was almost random that I wound up being there in the best way possible, but it's like it was the coolest thing. That's what the guys around me would say. I agree. It's been it's a great locker room of a lot of hungry people that all have the same mindset of we're trying to build each other. And when you have that positivity in a locker room, you just really can't beat it. So it's a very special place. I love it. And I think there's more to come from Open that will, you're watching. You'll see.
I'm pumped to get Joe Ocasio down in my neck of the woods for Wrestling Open Rhode Island now. For your career, I'm curious. You talked about one guy, Homicide now. I don't know when this drops, but when he announced recently that this is going to be his last year, what was it like for you getting to share the ring with him?
He's a legend. I mean, he is an absolute legend. I mean, I was a big TNA guy early. My parents had a box. So I would watch the pay-per-views weekly, the weekly Wednesdays. And I became a huge fan of LAX, huge fan of why is my brain not working? Elix Skipper, Daniels, and what was their gimmick?
I forgot the gimmick, but I know what you're talking about.
Okay, but either way, dude, I became a huge fan of them. So Homicide was, to me, even though Hernandez was the big Jack Strong guy, and that's what you think I would associate with, I always loved Homicide's like just the ruthlessness. Like he felt like he would bite you, probably do anything he could to win. And he had his run in Ring of Honor too, which I used to watch regularly. So to kind of consolidate it, I remember wrestling him. I know I was wrestling with Warriors. It was a test for me too, because it's me as the Landmine now in Warriors. Main event level match against a guy who I had a ton of respect for that I share a locker room with elsewhere. And I remember this at the point where I wasn't back yet. NWA. I almost think Billy works in a very strategic way. As I've gotten to know him, I've really appreciated his mind. So there was a gap where I wasn't there. And I don't think it was a negative thing. I think he wanted me to grow as a Landmine, so he knew that I'd done something different. And let me find that. And I like to say, after working with Homicide, I really felt like I nailed what I needed to be, because he was like, all right, by the way, he's like, there's been a couple of thoughts on how to bring you in here, and just kind of reminded me they're still thinking of me, and just kind of like affirming, like, you're one of us, Joe. That was important to hear from somebody like that, especially somebody who's, retiring, which is hard to swallow.
Yeah, you talk about that big match with Homicide. I'm curious, throughout your career, what would you say like some of Joe Ocasio's biggest matches of his career? or like tests in a way.
I mean, well, I just matched the NWA World Title match.
Yeah.
You can't, you know, that's as big as it gets to me. You know, obviously a world title.
Yeah.
But so Tom Latimer and you know, the thing is just learning from Tom too. Like I said before, the guy is the world champion. And I had similar. Okay, this is a good point. Similar learning experiences with him that I did with Mr. Ken. Ken's awesome.
Yeah.
You know, there's a certain. From my vantage point, there's a certain way you work as a main eventer. It's like these little things again that like maybe sound cliche or not, but they reinforce ideas that you've heard before, and you realize how significant those ideas are. That I'm not just crazy thinking that this is the way it should be because a lot of guys on the indies, even doing this for a really long time, don't do that. No, that is the way. That's what the main eventers are doing in the place I want to go. And it's like it's little things like. I don't even want to tell everyone the art.
Yeah.
It's little pieces. It's little things you wouldn't even think of. So Ken was a big learning experience, and I appreciate Warriors giving me that opportunity. Working with Colby Carino for the junior title, my first title match in NWA. You know, those are really defining matches for me. I'm sure there's more, man. I mean, Jay Lethal program was, you know, was incredible. You know, because I wrestled him multiple times. Yeah, man, those are to me, you know, those I'd say, you know, they're standouts, right? They're different moments. I mean, the wrestling Abyss early on was really cool.
Yeah.
I did the team talent, team Torment, wrestled him in the handicap. So yeah, I mean those. But for me, really, just being wrestling in a world title match of that caliber, I put a lot of pressure on my shoulders to perform at a high level. I take that seriously. You know, so yeah, that's it, you know, for me.
So speaking of blowing my mind, I remember seeing an Instagram post that absolutely blew my mind. So tell me about this experience, receiving a letter and the international title, was it, from the president of Italy?
Oh man, Serge.
How is this
Love
even,
that
like,
guy.
how did this come to be?
All right, so I'll give you the rundown, right? So I received a letter. I received a belt. Okay. I was just like, what is this?
Yeah.
How is this here? I will tell you, I didn't fact check anything. I was like, this is what it says. I'm going with it. So it must be him. You know, I'm going to say, you know, I still don't, I really wish I could give you the honest answer. I don't know. It's either that or somebody bought me a belt, which is fucking incredible, right? So I still, to this day, I really have no, but I'm like, dude, this is awesome. I'm going to run with it either way. And then, so then it just kind of got like, so kind of getting back to my personality, right? So when I went to Italy, so Italy has been, let me segue it with Italy. When I was going on my honeymoon, I remember I told my wife, I'm like, we have one wrestling thing I just trust me. I came into contact with Diego. He runs the International Italian Wrestling Association, also Pro Wrestling Roma. He's part of it. And we have his wife, believe it or not, somehow, I have a connection here through his wife. His wife's cousin I went to high school with.
Wow.
Small world, right?
Yeah.
So small world. So we just wound up connecting, and we had a lot of the same thoughts on wrestling, and we worked out strategic deals for me to come back. So I did, you know, but before we get to that part, I knew I was wrestling their big, they wanted me to wrestle this guy, Nick Fideli, and he's one of the upcoming baby faces in Rome. I'm like, well, then I have to be a heel. I'm like, but they don't, again, this goes back to, you assume people don't know who you are. It doesn't matter. Like every accolade you talked about, I appreciate it, and it's amazing to hear. But hey,
yeah,
you assume no one knows who you are. So I cut this promo just as this really arrogant Italian American. I just over exaggerated how my great grandparents are smart enough to leave, and it's a great vacation spot. But who the hell would live here? And like, I'm going to bring value to your company. And he loved the promo, and he goes, "You need to be a champion of mine. You will be." I'm like, what? So then, you know, the international title was born, the one that I won in Italy. And that wound up getting a crazy amount of traction online, especially on my Twitter. And, you know, I guess just, you know, it was for me, it's like, that was my, you know, I act as if I hate Italy when I'm there. But no, I love it. I remember my grandmother giving me this replica of the Coliseum, and I like fell in love with that and the history. So going back there was my third tour right before I wrestled Tom for the world title. It's just what a life, man. That's like the most beautiful thing to me. It's just but getting to Serge. So I'm doing a promo for my second tour, and I'm like, I'm just gonna be an idiot. So I'm like, yo, I asked a friend of mine, I'm like, could you seem like we're together? He's like, yes, am I gonna get in trouble? I'm like, no, it's wrestling. So I did the thing that we're photoshopped together. I'm holding the belt and saying he's my best friend. And then like it took on a life of its own. The people there love it. Mm-hmm. There's like I wrestled a show in Naples, which I've only really wrestled in Rome and the surrounding areas. So and people knew about the Surge thing. Mm-hmm. So it's just like this really fun other part of Joe Ocasio, other character that kind of only exists in Italy. But I really am trying to meet him. I've been like emailing his office, like, Serge, I need to meet you, bro. Then I can ask him if he really sent the belt. So, but he does stuff like that. I found out he does a lot of work with athletes, usually just Italian athletes. He does a lot of appearances with them, so that's kind of what he does because they have the prime minister who does most of the real hands-on stuff. But man, it's fun. It's really cool. I'm happy to entertain them. And Kareem, I'm going to put him over. Brigante, he was trained by Harley Race. We became very close friends through my tours back and forth. He's been here, and he always told me, he's like, if you can make Italians laugh, you're over. You're in.
Wow.
And so I've been able to do that because the Sergio it's just so ridiculous, but it's so fun.
What's like a strength of wrestling in Italy compared to here?
To me, it's what I found about their culture is they love wrestling. I think they want more of it. Mm-hmm. They want it to be more part of their culture. So it's like there's almost a deeper level of appreciation in certain ways. Yeah. Because I don't want to say I'm knocking the American fans that they don't appreciate. It's just the way that they show their appreciation. I feel like the history of the NWA to them is still very strong. Like it's all, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it's just, everything feels, because it's not as, this is the best way to put it, because it's not as available, there's just, you can feel it when you're there. And it's the guys there too. Like people, and I like fell in love with their wrestling school of the IWA and those guys. They're just so passionate, so respectful. And it helps me. Like it makes me, everything's always a two-way street. That my passion gets elevated. So I'm so happy to be here. So, yeah, it's just, it's incredible. And like, there's more to come, man. I have a vision. I've had a vision. So, it's cool. I really love it.
Yeah. So another post that blew my mind that was so cool to see. How did the opportunity come to you to hold Bruno's original title?
Oh, dude. So, I was on top of Kareem and his wife that we had to go to. Mm-hmm. And he has a real relationship with the mayor, Sammartino. So it's getting later in the week, and I'm like, dude, like I'll walk there. He's like, you can't. Like he's like, have to drive up. And it's not that I didn't want to go; it's just like the logistics of it. So we finally found the time, and it was a 3-hour trip to get there. Mm-hmm. So I'm schlepping my wife around too. It was like, really, right? But I'm like, just trust me. So we go up there and we get the first, like, I was like, oh, the mayor just had to go to Rome. But we still had the statue. So I'm like, all right, let's go to the statue. And doing the promo in front of the statue, just I got chills, because it's just really, I really spent time with Bruno. Joe Yates and I, back in 2013, I think, did the San Gennaro Festival, and they were looking for a couple of wrestlers just to be there with them. Really anybody, but like they reach out to the wrestling community first, and not as many people jumped on it as you think. Wow. So me and Joe were just like, absolutely, and I got to talk to him the whole day, and he gave my dad an autograph. Really just cool. Just he was a sweet man. Mm-hmm. And then to go there and to know I was wrestling for the NWA title, and to be in front of his statue talking about my retrospecting my career, and then we get a call from the mayor. He's apologizing, and he's like, oh, but he's like. And Bruno's like, well, can we go in your office? He's like, yeah. So they had the police officer open his office, and there it was.
Wow.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And especially because there was that little dip that that we thought it wasn't going to happen, and it did.
Mm-hmm. So. What was it like? You talked about it earlier briefly, but getting to finally challenge for the NWA World's Heavyweight Championship. And it's, what is it, 2 times you get to do it, right?
Yeah. So the first time, though, wasn't advertised because the title change hadn't happened yet.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't able to be advertised as a world title match. And that was my first time back from injury, wrestling him, whatever. But this time it was advertised fully. And that, just for me, it's validation, man. It's like, at the end of the day, the NWA is a large conglomerate group, and Tom Latimer is their guy. And to trust me, I don't care if it was on tour or whatever, to have the trust in me and the faith in me, not only to keep, to make sure that the show will go on and everybody will continue to wrestle and be safe, but that I belong in contention, any shape or form, is to me, it's the most rewarding part of the craft, because listen, kayfabe, there is a lot of reality in pro wrestling, and the reality is we are all our own brands, right? And you need to have a strong enough brand that's believable enough to be in a world title match, because the perception is the truth. It's, you are the top act of the company, right? That's the show thing that goes on last. So you're the headlining act, right?
Yeah.
A part of the headlining act. So that's, to me, that's what it meant to me, was a validation that I had earned the position of top guy, not top guy, but in contention for a world championship. It's the next step that I had been waiting for and wanting. And it's something you can't take away. You can never know. No matter what happens in my life, I did that. And
nice.
It's, that to me is how it feels.
Yeah. So I've told you before, even in college classes, I'm over there watching your matches. And one thing that sticks out about you is, I don't know, is it your finisher, the headbutt? Whose idea was that?
Yo, it's a great story. Love this story. I used to do a very similar thing, and sometimes I still do it when it's a knee, running knee when you're on your knees. And it was first NWA. And Homicide, I'm like, we're going over the match. I'm like, yo, I do this knee. He's like, no, we can't do a knee. Someone else does it. Shit. I'm like, can I do a headbutt? He's like, yeah, no one does that. I'm like, okay. So I just did it. And it was, I think it was to PJ Hawks. I hit him with that headbutt. I don't know. And Dr. Tom's sitting there, his glasses down like this when I get back. And I'm like, oh, he looks pissed. He's like, come here. He's like, that headbutt. Never stop doing that headbutt. That was fun. He's like, keep. And I'm like, it was good? He's like, good. He's like, keep doing the headbutt. Okay? Nice. And that's literally how it started. Just couldn't do anything.
Yeah, and then recently, what was it, last year? How long have you been helping promote Championship Entertainment Productions?
So that was the birth of that really started in a movie theater that our partner Mark had bought. He owns Lucharitos, which is a wrestling themed restaurant. He has a relationship with Dixon, who's my Lenny, my business partner. So he had got involved in some wrestling stuff in the past, doing FTW, working with we did a Remarkable, did something. But he wanted to do wrestling in the theater. He had this idea for like weekly wrestling and maybe just doing a theater before. Like, he had all these ideas, and we're like, well, let's just sit down and like figure out what you want to do. So we started doing some like beta testing in the theater of just doing some live events, and then it sparked into us getting licensed and insured, as opposed to working with different brands to run our own, just so we had it, because it was feasible. And then that just everything else, it's just like all of a sudden we're doing a show here, then we're doing a show here, there's interest here. Then we, he had bought a ring for there, but then we got an 18-foot ring. We went to Georgia and picked it up from QT Marshall, and
wow.
It was just like, dude, and all of a sudden we're doing the NWA shows, and we're affiliating with them as a partnership. So, I mean, it's been a very quick. I think the first time we did anything was 22.
Wow.
The theater, and
yeah,
so it's been fast, it's been rapid, and for me, I'm always outside the box. When we started really doing this, I wanted to, I do the Long Island Coalition Against Bullying. I know we're going to speak about that. Like, I'm a part of anti-bullying organizations, and I'm in a networking group called The Tip for my personal business. So I've realized there's a lot of people who haven't been exposed to wrestling, especially on this level, that if we could come up with the right brand that is suitable for what I believe the people in my network would probably want to see, we could do something special and maybe bring pro wrestling to different avenues it hasn't been brought to yet. There's things I can't talk about that I've been working on that will be absolutely revolutionary. I guarantee you that. But it developed a new passion for me, and it's just using pro wrestling is, when done right, is incredible. It's had its ups and downs for perception for the mainstream, but where we're at now and where it's going, I'm really happy to be a part of the ride, exposing it to different sectors.
Yeah, so your resume goes beyond wrestling. Now, I remember texting you one day. I got bored in class. I was watching a bunch of your matches, and then came across you do motivational speaking. When did that first start?
So it was, I think, 2022. There's a man named George. He has this company called Speed, which was an offset of Ted, because he had left the brand. He wanted to have his own. Platform. He's a Farmingdale guy. We connected through a mutual friend. And I was selected to be the first speaker in the inaugural Speak class. And a lot of it was about my overcoming obesity and going through the trials and tribulations of injuries and being unsure if wrestling was going to be my full-time thing and all that. And then it ended with, it was the first time I was doing extra work. So, first time stepping into WWE arena in any form was pretty cool to me. And that's how we ended the talk, and people were crazy, like, oh, shit. And that was like the whole, the tie-in. So that's how that started. And then from there, I went into some different elementary schools and spoke to the kids with a similar kind of talk, just more toned down for elementary school level. And so then it segued. Finally, I'm part of the TIP. I told you about that. It's networking organizations of different business owners. There's the same categories that shared. So I'm the only trainer, for example. So part of what you do is you give a presentation, like a 30-second, they call it commercial, I call it promo, on what you do, right? So I did that, and the CEO was there last year, and I'm like, I'm gonna do some crazy shit. So I got up and I did this, I did this crazy promo, like kind of as The Rock, but not. And I just listed off my accolades and mentioned that The Rock put me over and whatever. It was, I don't even remember what I said, but very entertaining, and it hit every note, and it was right on time. Wrestling time. So I actually connected with her not too long ago. I sent a message. I'm like, hey, I'd love to speak at the conference sometime. She goes, I've actually been thinking about you and happy you messaged me. Let's chat. So now I'm doing a full talk at the National Convention in Vegas in May. So that part of my career is evolving as well. It's cool, man. Like, listen, we're all people, man. We all have our struggles. We all have our stories, and I've been given the gift of being able to share my story in a way that seems to touch people somehow, some way. So I'm just kind of giving what God gave me, because I for the most part, I know it sounds like I don't have that. I don't have like a crazy ego in the sense, like, I don't think I'm like the shit that that doesn't stink. Like I believe in other people. I think that we're all very capable of things that sometimes we push down. So it makes me happy to see anybody do something that they've wanted to do that they were timid to do, because maybe my story gave them a little, hey, it's possible.
Yeah. What about acting? When did that start?
Yeah, I did, when I was a little kid, I was into acting a little bit. I did like some student films and stuff, but I always enjoyed it. And then I was dealing with a bicep tear right before that. I was driving in Levittown. There's a studio called Actors Access, the Actors Workshop. And I'm like, oh, this is pretty cool. Like, let me just walk in. And it's like this Jack dude. And he looks familiar. And like, I wind up booking just doing a personal session with him. So I'm like, I want to learn from you. It winds up being Matt Cardona's Uncle Chris. Wow. I swear it was random. I swear.
Yeah.
And, and I don't know Matt that well, but we had that connection, and Chris likes acting a lot more than wrestling. But it was cool because I got insight from him, who, acting has a lot of subtleties and differences, but there's a lot of things that are the same. And I really enjoyed doing these different parts, and for me, it was a way to just grow, to expand my repertoire, right? Because you want to be dynamic, you want to be able to hit different, so being different characters and understanding the mindset of what you have to get into and different delivery. So, and then I just recently we did this pilot for a show that never happened, but I just did a movie that's wrestling based where I was an American wrestler. So it was really, really cool. That's going to be coming out soon.
Wow.
It's really cool.
Yeah, you've been killing it. And the last thing I wanted to ask you about, when did the idea finally start for you starting Joe's Result Zone?
Yeah, so I was a fitness instructor for a large conglomerate, and I worked my way to be a regional trainer and a head coach of multiple studios. And when the quarantine hit, for many reasons, even though I was as top as I could be, I thought it was time to part because I didn't know what was going to happen. And, there's other things in life sometimes, it just was time to go. So, but in doing so, I was stepping away from something, that was very secure. But with the quarantine itself, I just said, I just like, hey, you guys want to does anyone wants to go to the park and work out? Like, I'll come up with something, right? So we need the outdoors and social distancing. And a lot of people came, and that continued to happen. And then I'm like, all right, let's just do it at my place because the social distancing started getting looser. So we did it outdoors at my place. Then I have this huge garage that's just empty, not wasting space. So let's update the garage to a gym. And then I needed it for myself anyway. And then out of nowhere, quarantine's over. All the other gyms are back open. And I have a group of people, large group that just were with me, man. So training. The reason I got into training was for wrestling, right? To get in shape. And then when I got hurt back in 2016, that's when I really made it a career as well, because I'll kind of leave it with this. This kind of goes back to what I was saying. Like, there is a window that you have as an athlete. And every year I realize that window is getting shorter. And it hurts to think about there's going to be a time I can't do this anymore. And it's something that I think we all need to, as wrestlers, you got to address that. You got to prepare yourself because it's not a plan B. It's an after plan because we're all, your body's going to eventually say, yeah, I can't do it anymore. So that's why I took the business side of it seriously. And in doing so, I started helping people. It was really nice to see people hit goals. Like I said before, there's another way to help people hit their goals. And, so now it is, right? I have a really solid clientele base and working on something major that's going to blend both worlds and very soon. And it's very rewarding. But it's all because of wrestling. If it wasn't for wrestling, I wouldn't have. If it wasn't for people saying I'm a fat kid that couldn't do it, I wouldn't have said, yes, I can. And I did, so it all goes back to wrestling, man. So,
wow.
I owe my life to it.
Yeah, well, I want to thank you for doing this, Joe. However, I've ended every interview the same now. I hope it's no time soon, but the day Joe Ocasio decides it's all done in pro wrestling, what do you want your legacy in wrestling to be?
Certainly won't be soon, as long as my body says okay. My legacy, truthfully, what I want my legacy to be is that I genuinely loved this more than anything, and that every time I went out there, it was with the intention to give the people there, whether it was a small crowd in Virginia or my home crowd or AEW in front of thousands or NWA for a world title, to give them every single bit that I could to bring them off their feet, whether they loved, whether they hated, whether they booed, whether they cheered, to give them that escape that I always gave it 100%. I just want to be remembered as a guy that grinded and cared and wasn't just in it to hopefully one day be a big star. It's for the love of this art. So that's how I hope.
Well, Joe, I want to thank you for doing this, man. I want to thank you for everything, man. I'm glad we made this happen.
Dude, I really appreciate you having me, man. This is a great interview. You outdid yourself with the amount of work, well, the amount of information that you had and the memories you gave me in this talk was too. So thank you.
Thank you, Joe, for doing this. And thank you, everybody, for watching this episode. This was Best for Business.
Thank you for watching this episode of Best for Business. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, because this is Best for Business.